WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by JW Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. We're coming to you on Star Communications Channel 16. Also, we're simulcast on WCLN Radio. We're talking with an individual that knows a little bit about that term, Star Communications, Jeffrey A. Nethercutt, the Chief Executive Officer, Vice President, and CEO. Jeff, I look back at your titles. We're kind of here today letting folks know what you've already announced, that you're going to be stepping out of your position and going into the world of being a retiree the last of November.
Absolutely.
And I want to first and foremost congratulate you on a splendid and stellar journey in your career.
I appreciate that, JW. It has been the honor of my professional life to have been employed by Star. Wonderful company, great employees, great customers, great community. So I could not have been more fortunate than to have been given the opportunities I've had at Star, and could not have accomplished nearly the things I've been able to accomplish without those. So it's bittersweet, but at the same time, I'm looking forward to being retired too.
Well, it's quite a weight that'll be lifted, because looking back historically at Star, and of course these names I know you'll remember: Alfred Kohler.
Sure.
You'll remember Mickey Tew, and you remember Lyman Horn, because it was kind of under Lyman's tutelage that you became the CEO,
right,
and Executive Vice President. When you look at your journey in getting there, I was kind of intrigued when I looked at the track record, because you started out with BB&T. You were a financial guy. You
right.
were like had that area around Fayetteville. That was a huge job, but that was also a job with unbelievable possibilities. Tell us what that trigger was that caused Jeff Nethercutt to say, I believe I want to get in the communications business, and on top of that, I want to get into a rural telephone membership cooperative.
Of course, I grew up here in Clinton. I'd always known about Star Telephone. Mm-hmm. I actually had a family member who was a longtime employee at Star, so I knew what Star was about, the cooperative principles and those kinds of things. But on the banking front, I actually started out with East Coast Federal Savings and Loan, which you probably remember. It was in the community. Worked for them until 1993. We were acquired by Southern National Bank, and then within a year or so, there was a merger of equals between Southern National and BB&T. So I went through two transitions there in terms of mergers, and things worked out pretty well for me. In terms of the banking side. And I love the banking business. I learned a lot in banking that I've been able to use in my career at Star and just life in general over the last 30 years. But in terms of what prompted me to make the move when I made it back in 1995, there were a couple things going on in my life at the time. Of course, the mergers. And as you know, in banking, a lot of times your ability to climb the ladder depends on your ability to move around some to different communities and different areas. And my kids were really small then. I had one child that was just before starting kindergarten. The other was very small. And at the same time, my dad was experiencing some health problems. And me being an only child, and he had a local business. And so all those things together gave me the ability to sort of come back home to my hometown, and then the opportunity to come back with Star was an opportunity I really couldn't pass up. You mentioned Lyman Horn. Lyman and I worked together from 1995 till he retired in 2017. He was my direct boss the entire time, and I learned a great deal from him. I owe him quite a bit. Mickey, too, was our general manager at the time. But that was sort of what prompted me to make the move. Now, after the move was made, and in the area that I was hired to work in, which was regulatory and revenue, which was all the banking relationships we had, I was sort of able to hit the ground running with Star. And as you all remember, we were just getting started with Star Vision at that time, and there were a lot of things going on then. partnering with Interstar Communications for dial-up internet. And so, anyway, it was a good transition for me, and it was a good fit. And I've never regretted it for a minute. I miss a lot of my friends in banking. I've actually, in the last several days, had an opportunity to speak to several of them I bumped into from years gone by. And I was at a wedding yesterday, and actually one of my coworkers from the Fayetteville market was there as well, and we talked a little bit about banking. He's still in banking, but he's getting close to retirement too.
It's an interesting journey for me when I look at it, and I think about you kind of feeling. I'm hearing from you. You're kind of feeling more grounded when you got back to Clinton and Duplin County and Bladen County and the surrounding counties where your members, Star members were.
Right.
One of the things that interested me, I was trying to sort this out. In fact, I had a discussion with somebody. When you started as a revenue analyst.
Right.
Was there a revenue analyst before you being the revenue analyst?
No, this was a new position.
It was a new, I thought it was.
It was a new position. There were 3 new positions in the company at that time that were being filled. The company was growing quite rapidly, and in the area of information technology, revenue and regulatory, and also marketing, those areas were really starting to grow quite a bit in terms of what the co-op needed. So there were 3 of us that basically came on at the same time in early 1995. So,
I think it's interesting when I look at your track record, it's almost a perfect example. Oftentimes when I try to explain to folks that you don't just all of a sudden sign up and you end up in a CEO or executive vice president position. There's a ladder to climb, and those steps are just kind of laid out. Is this something you saw that, at some point in time I want to be in that position of executive vice president, CEO of Star Communications? Or did you just start there and all of a sudden it gradually opened for you?
It was more start there and it gradually opened for me. When you first start, I can remember the first day I came to work at Star, and I knew a few people there. But walking in the door that day, the position of CEO had not crossed my mind. Right. At that point in my career, of course, I was 35 years old, and I realized I was fortunate to have been given the chance to work for a great local company and to get back home and to be able to do some things in my hometown that I really wanted to do. But it was just over a course of a couple of decades that things began. I began to see the opportunity possibly to do that. And then when Lyman announced his retirement, I thought, well, I've worked with him directly for so long. I feel like this is something that I want to do and that I'm capable of doing, and that's sort of how it took place. The background was there and what we needed to do going forward with the company, and I had a vision, and I knew due to my age I might wind up being sort of a transitional type leader, which was basically the way it wound up, but in a good way. So those are sort of the things that got me to where I am today. I mean, there are a lot of different, and the position and the company itself has changed a great deal over the last 27, 28 years. Initially we were a telephone company. We were partnering with another company doing dial-up internet service and all our exchanges, local dial-up. We had just gotten StarVision off the ground to offer video products. And of course, over those next 20 plus years, you saw the advent of DSL and the growth of fiber in the network, and sort of saw where that was headed. And then you got, you opened in different lines of business like security. And now with the grant opportunities that are available on both state and federal level, there are a lot more services that can be layered on top of that existing network. So, I mean, it's been a journey, but it's never been boring one day. And so I'm very thankful for that.
So when I look at it, you started as revenue analyst, you went to the director of revenue, and that was 11 years and 8 months. You went from there to vice president of corporate operations, 5 years and 1 month. You left that, you went to assistant general manager. Now that's kind of putting you right under Lyman's wing, so to speak. That was the point in time that I would think that you could feel the weight from that position that was right there in front of you called Executive Vice President and CEO. Was there any time during that process that you started seeing that and thinking, well, I thought maybe that might be something I want to do, or I see Lyman getting hit with a lot of this stuff on his windshield, and I don't know on my windshield. Just kind of be, wherever you want to go with that. But I thought it was interesting because I'm thinking about this from a educational point of view.
Right.
Folks have to understand that you literally stepped out of one world into another, and you stayed the course, and you climbed that ladder. And part of it's because you had credentials that opened a door. I mean, you had a Bachelor of Science degree in economics from Campbell, and that was a sure thing. So the analytics was critical.
Right. That's very true. I mean, the various positions that I held gave me the opportunity to go into some areas to give you the background that you really need for the job that I have today. Mm-hmm. And was fortunate to have worked with Mr. Horn in those areas and learn various things. And when the Director of Corporate Operations, the restructure came along and I wound up in that role, at that point, not only was the revenue regulatory piece underneath my supervision, but also our IT department and accounting department. So, at that point, the number of employees that reported to me probably tripled. And you really began to feel the responsibility piece of it, which was a good thing. It sort of set the stage for what was to come. When Mr. Horn began to discuss the possibility of retirement, and I was named by the board as assistant GM, as you just said, that's when the weight of the entire company sort of began. You begin to really feel what it's like, and try to acclimate yourself to that. And that's when you can make that decision. Yes, this is what I want to pursue, or maybe this is not for me. But I always felt like I could do the job at that point, and I'm glad I did.
We're going to take a break. I want to pick it up from there when we come back, because that's an interesting place to start from. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Jeff Nethercutt as he looks at the future in retirement. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Welcome back. We Should Know is on there. We're coming to you Star Communications, Channel 16, WCLN Radio, simulcast on Tuesdays at 2:30 and at 7 p.m. Tuesday, Thursday on Star Communications TV. We're talking with the Executive Vice President and CEO of Star Communications, at least for a few more days anyway.
Yes.
And you're going to be stepping out, Jeff. I again, thank you so much for coming in and taking time. I know your schedule's busy here at the close of everything and passing this leverage on to someone else. But I want to kind of follow up on the conversation to kind of help folks understand that going through the process of ending up in the position you did as CEO and Executive Vice President, no matter whether it's a telephone cooperative, whether it's some other company, there's a process involved.
Sure.
And if you had to speak to folks today that is in their journey at Star or some other company,
Right.
Give them some advice on this idea of kind of staying the course, I'll call it.
Right. Well, my advice would be, don't get ahead of yourself and don't push too hard. I mean, it's one thing to be ambitious and have the goals and that sort of thing, but if you'll stay true to yourself and do the work necessary and put in the work necessary to get to where your ultimate goal is, there's a good chance you'll achieve those goals. I mean, I know that there might be people that say, well, it's easy for him to say. He's 30 years in and he's on the verge of retirement. But that was sort of the way I looked at it during the course of my career. And then you sort of wind up one day and you go, wow, how did I accomplish all that? And there are a lot of years. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And make no mistake about it, there are a lot of people along the way that help you achieve those goals. I've heard this stated before, my dad said that, he said the people above you can really help you, but the people beneath you on your journey can really kill you if you don't appreciate what they do for you. So I mean, I've got all the respect in the world for the employees that I work with, that worked for me during this time, and helped me get to that point that I wanted to reach. But it's not instantaneous. I know in the day and the times that we live in now, instant gratification in terms of everything being at your fingertips, and you don't get out of college or get out of any trade school you're in and wind up at the top in 5 years. That's just not possible. To get the experience and the background that you need a wide and a broad range of experiences and different responsibilities during that time in order to prepare yourself for the day that opportunity presents itself. I follow Richard Branson, a lot of his quotes. I find him fascinating when it comes to those type things. And I remember distinctly reading a quote that he had, and this was during the time of my transition into this job. He said, if a great opportunity is presented to you, take it. Learn how to do it later. And while there may be some truth in that, if you're well-rounded and you've got a lot of experience and knowledge over the course of a lot of years, that makes that a whole lot easier. So that's just the way I sort of looked at it during the course of my time.
The journey that you went into and got into is unique, as you just pointed out, because you're the leader of a membership cooperative.
Right.
Somewhat different than a lot of CEO positions. You have an expectation and not only answer to a board,
right,
but a larger community. How does that weight shift? Does it shift daily for you? Is it something that changes through processes of expectation? Kind of talk to us about that, because I think folks that are in those positions with cooperatives are very unique people, because it's not you don't necessarily run around and try to please everybody, but at some point in time you have to explain it in some way to everybody.
Oh, sure. And as you said, we are governed by 9 directors that represent our 10 exchanges of STAR. And so there is that responsibility to the board to make them aware of where the company's headed, how the company's doing in the various areas of service that we offer. But in terms of our members and our customers that are customers of our CLEC operation, Star Vision, that we operate outside of the boundaries of the Star franchise service territory, you do have that responsibility. And I looked at that and still do as a great opportunity to separate yourself from other providers, because we're local. We go to church and school, and we're play sports together with our members and customers, and they know us, and and a lot of people have my cell phone number, and if there's a problem, they don't mind calling me, and I don't mind them calling me. So but that immediate ability to help somebody, or to help somebody understand something they don't really understand about what's going on, is an advantage for cooperative and local people. Other providers are located in faraway places, or their corporate offices are, and we're right here. And so we're accessible, and we're accessible, and we respond quickly, and we're able to, I feel like, to offer the best customer service in the area. Now, that's not to say we can do that in every situation. There are a lot of moving parts in broadband or video service, whether it be equipment, the network, or something that's beyond our control. Things break, or we might have a problem. But I would venture to say that we probably respond to those situations a lot more quickly than some larger commercial company that's not locally based, like Star or some of the other broadband or electric cooperatives in the state of North Carolina. The cooperative community as a whole across North Carolina does a fantastic job serving its members. And we're no different. I mean, we serve a huge area. I mean, you look at a service area of 1,458 square miles, about the size of the state of Rhode Island, is our geographic area. We serve portions of 5 counties, the largest being Sampson and Bladen. But when you look at that vast geographic area, and it's the most rural areas of the state in terms of the other broadband cooperatives, we average about 2.6 or 7 customers per route mile of cable, which is very sparsely populated in some of our areas. And the people that live in those more insular areas out in rural parts of where we serve are just as important to us as people that are in the towns and, small cities that we serve as well. So there's a commitment there on the part of STAR's board and its employees to make sure those people are taken care of.
You mentioned something I want to kind of circle back to. You talked about members and customers. When you look at it in with a closer view, that's sometimes that's the same people,
right?
But the other times not necessarily so, because customers do not have the same, should I say, access in what goes on and
right.
decision making as members do, because
right.
they're, as you and I both know, are part owners in that whole cooperative. How do you balance that? And is there a need to help folks understand that? Because both are critically important. Both are definitely important as far as revenue is concerned.
Right.
But yet members in a real sense have part of the governance piece that they
right. Members of the cooperative, they are able to vote at our annual meeting of the membership. We have a membership meeting once a year. We have 9 directors that are up for 3-year terms every year. So we have an election of 3 directors every year, mm-hmm. and the way the board functions. But they're very important in the governance of the cooperative. Mm-hmm. They have certain rights and privileges that customers of our CLEC operation outside the franchise service territory don't have. Mm-hmm. They don't have the ability to vote. If you're in one of the areas that we've overbuilt with Fiber, Clinton, Roseboro, Salemburg, Garland, and some other areas as well, and while they're important, I mean, every customer is important, but it is sort of a balancing act, because there are times that you can do things because of regulatory constraints that are put on you in the franchise service area when it's deregulated and outside those boundaries, that you can do a little different. And it depends on the service you're talking about, whether it's voice or other things. And there are certain fees that are required to be charged within the franchise service territory of the co-op.
Right. That
may not be when it's a deregulated service within a CLEC area that's served by Star Vision. So there's a balancing act there, but you strive to make it equitable across the board in terms of level of service. You can make no distinction there. Every customer, every member, when there's a problem, we need to get on it right away. We need to resolve it. We need to make sure we're responsive, and we're here, and we listen to what they say they want, and we try to balance those needs and expectations between what we can reasonably offer to them at a fair price. So sometimes it's difficult, but most of the time, when you give people an opportunity to explain the problem to you, if they have a concern, take time to talk to them. More importantly, you take the time to listen to them. Then those things tend to work themselves out.
We're living, I think, in a new world of expectation. Some folks would say some of them are unrealistic. Others would say, well, we should expect the same as somebody else. When we come back from this break, I want to kind of approach some of those expectations. And at the same time, before we let you get away today, I want you to kind of be thinking about looking at some of the things that you looked at and saw and found was challenges.
Right.
You went through hurricanes, you've gone through COVID. A lot of this has been things that you couldn't control or nobody else could, but yet you weathered those storms during your tenure. And I think people would kind of like to hear about that. So we've got a lot of stuff to unpack here, and I just want folks to understand as we go to this break to stay tuned, because we hadn't got to the real heavy lifting yet.
Right.
But we're getting there.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking with Jeff Nethercutt, who is stepping down from Star Communications as their leader. We're talking about some of the things and challenges he had and what we can learn from him. We'll be back in a moment.
Eastern North Carolina is a beautiful place where we gladly choose to call home, and we strive to provide the best communications services. STAR is committed to improving communications to all our service areas because we want to improve the communities where we not only work, but also live. STAR Communications. We are neighbors serving neighbors.
Just because something may work doesn't mean it's right for your business. Let STAR Communications' knowledgeable consultants help you customize a hosted voice system that's right for you. Our dedicated experts work with you to understand your business needs and guide you at every step, from choosing and installing services to ongoing maintenance and support. Contact STAR today.
Welcome back. JW Simmons is my name. The show is We Should Know. We're talking with Jeff Nethercutt, the Executive Vice President, CEO of STAR Communications, at least for a few more days or weeks,
Yes.
and you'll be stepping down. Jeff, it's just a very interesting discussion, and I hope folks is getting as much out of it as I am, because I think you're really opening up, sharing a lot. This whole journey with communications and the dynamic of communications took a dramatic shift in early 2019 and 2020 and 2021, particularly as it related to COVID.
Right.
And I want to address that, and I also want to touch on some of the things that you faced in your position that related to natural disasters, to include flooding, particularly,
Right.
because you literally had to move your office.
Sure.
So let's start with the COVID thing, and then we'll circle back to the flooding thing. But COVID seemed to, by most reading that I've done, and others I think would agree, open the door to demand greater connectivity. STAR not only was already engaged in that, but how did that affect the speed and necessity of speed for you guys to make that happen in homes?
Well, it affected the world, as we all know, but it shone a bright light on the need for broadband in everyday life, with people being forced to work from home, kids going, remote learning, and then telemedicine. People couldn't go to their doctors, and they were doing doctor's appointments online. So it really had you focusing on the areas that you did not have fiber connectivity, that you could offer some of the speeds necessary to do some of the things that needed to be done. While everybody over our entire service territory had access to the internet, and had for well over 10 years, there were certain areas that we were still serving with copper, and you have some constraints there versus areas that we served with fiber, which were a lot more conducive to the faster speeds that were needed. But it really shone a bright light on the necessity to have fiber throughout the network, and for every citizen in this country probably have a fiber optic connection.
And I think it added a lot of pressure on the political world to make sure certain things happen for what is often referred to, and I don't necessarily agree, that we lived in a marginalized area, and I've had this debate with professors and everybody else. I certainly don't feel marginalized, but it did give you some weight as it relates to grants and other things, did it not?
Sure. We really saw the landscape start to shift in 2018, 2019, when we saw the North Carolina Great Grant Program, which was a state grant fund for Tier 1 economically distressed counties initially. That's the way the program was founded, to try to bridge that digital divide in rural America between the urban areas and rural areas. And so the state of North Carolina was very proactive in putting that plan forward. And we were fortunate enough in the inaugural year of that plan to be a recipient, and did a couple of projects in Bladen County. We've since applied for several others. And of course, in 2019, we really got a very nice grant from USDA on rural development in the first Reconnect offering. So we've got state programs, we got federal programs, and COVID probably pushed that forward as much as anything did. The need was already being realized, But then COVID came along and it really pushed it to the front of the line. And it got our legislators on both state and federal level, it really got their attention. They were hearing a lot from the people back home. I can't get this, I can't get that. And of course, in rural settings, the cost of constructing broadband without the assistance of some type of grants, it's really hard to make a business case at $35,000, $40,000, in some instances, $40,000, $45,000 a mile to construct fiber where you've got 3 customers. And so the grant funding has been a huge success, not only for the companies themselves, but for the citizens that we serve, because it expedited our plans to be able to offer the things we're offering today by the grant programs, both state and federal. So my hat's off to both our state legislators as well as our legislators and leaders in Washington to recognize that, put together these plans, and to see them through, because COVID shone the bright light, and it's created some problems in bringing these programs to fruition, because then you started seeing the supply chain issues. And so that's a problem. And then the inflationary pressures are there as well. And a lot of that had to do with some of the relief that was done for COVID and the monies that were put out there. But you got to stay ahead of your contractors. If you got the labor's an issue, but we've been very fortunate to have good contractors that have done these projects for us. And but you got to have the materials to stay ahead of those people, both the fiber, pedestals, field electronics, all those things that are necessary to make it work. And we're no different than anybody else. This isn't something that's just unique to Star. Every company that offers this service across this country has got the same problems. There's supply chain issues there. But I give great thanks to our people that look after the warehouse, our procurement of these things. They've uncovered under every rock, behind every bush, have been able to find what we needed to keep things going and not stop. And they're to be given a great deal of credit for that.
Would we ever be where we are now with fiber and connectivity had we not have had the impact of COVID internationally?
We might, but the timelines would be a lot different.
Be a lot slower.
It'd be very much slower. I've often said the advent of these grant programs probably sped up our, providing fiber connectivity to every member and every customer by 15 to 20 years. It pushed it out that it expedited it that much. When you're paying as you go, and it's difficult the capital expenses of those type things are enormous. So without those, the timeline would be much longer than it is now. We've got 5 exchanges that were part of the first Reconnect project. We've completed the Herring Exchange, the 6 Runs Exchange. We got another grant, Community Connect grant, to use in the Caheri Exchange, and it should be finished before the end of the year. And we'll be splicing and hooking up customers there. And our next exchange that we'll be moving into with the Reconnect program will be the Herald's Exchange. The staking's completed. The bids have been let, and we've got a contractor that'll be starting there pretty soon. So then after that will come Kelly and Lisbon down into Bladen County.
Does this movement with fiber and all that happened in getting that fiber into ground and connecting new customers to fiber, does that help solidify the economic income you need for survivability as a cooperative in today's world?
I absolutely, without a doubt. It's proven. There are a lot of options for broadband out there. There's a lot of wireless. You got 5G. You got these other low Earth orbit satellites that are being promoted. But I think it's been proven that terrestrial fiber optic connectivity for the long run with minimal problems is fiber optics. And once you get those in place, the only things that really change are the electronics on the ends that pushes the light, the speed. Speeds are going to continue to, and the trend will be speed requirements or speed demands are going to continue to increase. Broadband and bandwidth is going to continue to go up as time goes on over the next several years. Used to be, 100 meg was considered a lot. That's pretty standard now. 100 by 100 synchronous service. Yeah. Gigabit service is right around the corner. I mean, with just in households now, your refrigerator's connected to the internet, your dishwasher's connected to the internet. Every device in the house, whether it be an iPad, a laptop,
security cameras,
everything, cameras, everything rides that internet. So, yeah, I think the viability of any company that's in this business today is directly related to the expansion of fiber within their areas that they provide service, whether it be their CLEC outside the franchise area or within the standardized service territory. I know in our particular situation, we just recently submitted another grant request within the last month that, if awarded, will allow us to complete basically the balance of our service territory with fiber. And, that was one of the goals I really had when I stepped into this role. I wanted to see our whole service territory, connected to fiber optics and with the speeds the members deserve. So hopefully that'll come to fruition.
That piece of fiber that's in the ground, is it adequate to take it to those limits that you just mentioned, that may be 1,000 meg or 1 gig or 2 gig? Is that one piece of fiber? Does it have the capacity to move that much at that speed?
Well, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that it can, but it'll depend on the evolution of the electronics at either end to do that.
There's an unknown there.
There's an unknown there. And that's not something that we as a provider really have control over. We're dependent upon our vendors and the manufacturers of this equipment to do that. I'd say on the other side of that, it's been proven that community is capable of stepping up and doing those things when it's needed. So I feel like, yes, that can be accommodated. The original ring that Star had back in the 80s, when they went to digital switching in all 10 exchanges, and the self-healing fiber optic ring that was put in place for Star's digital COs to be connected to one another. At that time, it was state of the art. I think there were 8 fibers in that. Yeah. And now, I mean, the transport fibers that we use are much more capable of larger amounts of data.
We're going to take a quick break. Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking about fiber. We're talking with Jeff Nethercutt, CEO, Executive Vice President.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Let's get out of here.
Protect what matters most in your life with security from Star Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. My name is JW Simmons, your host. We're talking with Jeff Nethercutt, who is the Executive Vice President and CEO of Star Communications for a few weeks. Just stepping down. This is kind of a goodbye conversation about some of the accomplishments and things that happened during your tenure as the Executive Vice President, CEO. One of the things I wanted to touch on before, and this is the last segment, so I want to touch on this quickly, is this challenge that hit you that was, somebody would say, if something bad's going to happen, not only did your parade get rained on, it got flooded. The building, the very office that you lived out of, so to speak, at Star on 421 was just wiped out. And then you discovered, well, wait a minute, this has happened so many times, we're not really going to be able to go back there. Kind of tell us how that worked and what a challenge it has been, not just for a year, but for several years.
Right. Well, the first time we experienced that was Hurricane Matthew in 2016, October of 16. To my knowledge, that was the first time any water had ever gotten into that building was during Matthew, and we were there through Fran and Floyd and a lot of other big storms. But we went through a year of putting the building back together, and during that time, of course, we had to step out, relocate, get put in several different locations in order to be able to continue. We had to offer service. We had to stand everything up quickly, so we did, and it took a year to put it together. We moved back in August of 2017, and the following year in September of 2018 comes Hurricane Florence. Exact same damages, water throughout the building, destroyed everything on the inside. At that point, went through the protocol again. We had to get everybody relocated, had to stand up operations quickly. We're able to do that. It's sad to say, but our folks had gotten really good at moving at a moment's notice. We're sort of like a MASH unit. We could just move and set back up and go. But we did that, and at that point, as you alluded to earlier, we realized it just, from our perspective, was not feasible to go back into that location when it could happen again. Water's got a really good memory. It kind of goes back to where it's used to going to. So we began the process with FEMA at the state and federal level. That has gone on for a long time, and we still are in the midst of a final appeal with FEMA on certain aspects of this. That's in Washington now, but have gotten no word. But we do have a path forward going forward. But yeah, it was a challenge, because even right now today, we're in 5 locations. Our employee body, we used to have about 65 people working in that one building, and at that time we had about 115 employees. So the vast majority of our people worked in that office, whether it be accounting, human resources, IT, regulatory revenue, executive side of the business. We were all in that spot. But we had to move into 5 different locations, which we currently are now, including our warehouse out on 421 across from the Farm Bureau location there. We've got staff in there. All our plant operations are out of there. Our marketing department is out of a location where we own a storefront on Sampson Street. We're currently in our executive department on Elizabeth Street.
In the old BB&T.
Well, Old First Union building.
Old First Union.
It's the Old First Union building.
Yeah, which you have some history with.
I started my career in a bank building. It looks like I'm going to end it in a bank building, although doing something entirely different.
Absolutely.
But and then our customer service operations are centered in the small retail space we've got at the Lowe's Shopping Center. And we have our Elizabethtown district office right outside of Elizabethtown in Bladen County. But we've had to be able to do that, and it has created some logistical problems. And anytime you're trying to manage an entire company that's scattered in various locations, the ability to call everybody together for a quick meeting, you no longer have that. So you have to sort of think out in advance of things to do those kinds of things. But our employees are great. They've, I'm sure, not been comfortable the entire time in terms of being cramped and as far as where we are now. But they've made it happen. We've seen no degradation of service that we offer to our customers and our members. And day to day, we're still getting it done. And on top of that, we've had almost $40 million worth of grants that we've received and are putting those into place. So I owe it all to them. I mean, they've made it happen and still make it happen every day.
Quality employees and empowering them to do the job.
Right. In that situation, you got to trust, especially your senior management staff, you got to trust them to do what they need to do to get it done, because you're scattered about. But my hat's off to them. They've done a great job. And we still get together quite often at the executive management team level, talk about problems, meet, go back to our respective areas, and take care of business.
Now you've put into place, this is already into place, so I'm not asking you to expect future nothing here, but you've got in place an $18+ million facility that's going to be built on 24.
Right. We do have a path forward for a new location. I'm glad to be able to announce that. We currently are going to be putting the whole campus On Highway 24, we own a nice piece of property out there directly across from Walmart, next to Black's Tires, about 12 acres. About half that's cleared, so our whole campus will be located there, have everybody under one roof. We're currently in design and planning stages now with the architects and engineers. We should have a schematic drawing, hopefully by sometime in January, to share with our board. And then from that point forward, it goes into completion of design, and then you get into the bid letting process with an anticipated groundbreaking summer of 23.
Just to clarify, so when you look at all those places that folks are located now, all of those people will be consolidated back on that one campus, so you will not need all these places downtown?
No, we won't at that point. You know, the warehouse will definitely still operate as it always has on 421, but it'll be the opportunity to get all our employees back under one roof. I think the community as well as our company certainly will be proud of this facility once it's completed. It should be a nice state-of-the-art location, high-profile building out on probably the most heavily traveled business thoroughfare that we have in town, and something we can all be proud of. I think the county will be proud of it. I think everybody in Clinton-Sampson County will be proud of this location when we finish.
The future, you're leaving the future looking bright.
I feel like it really was nice to be able to find this path forward on this before I retired. That was one thing that I felt like I really wanted to see through, in addition to some other things, but really wanted to see that through because I'd seen what the employees had been through twice with flooding. I didn't want to see them have to go through that again. It's pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
Not only from a service, rendering ability, but also from just, personal perspective of having that. Every time you see a storm spin up in the Atlantic, you sort of get that little churning in your stomach. Absolutely. You don't really know how it's going to wind up. Yeah. But happy to be able to, if I was going to retire, to be able to retire with that in place and be able to see that through.
Sounds wonderful. I got two more questions, and we're going to come to a close here right quick. So it always closes out on me fast. But Star's always had this motto, the corporate motto. And the corporate motto is neighbors serving neighbors. Right. Is that motto applicable today as you leave your post? Do you still feel that motto is something that you can see going forward in the future? Sure.
I've never, through all the things the company might have gone through, or just when everything, before we got into the situation of COVID and hurricanes and all that, it was evidenced every day. The people that work for our company live in the communities we serve. We go to church together. We see our neighbors there. We play sports with our kids and go to school. And so it's as applicable today as it was when the motto was first, established, neighbors serving neighbors. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
I think that is an expression of the resilience of a cooperative. I really do.
I do too.
Perfect. I've got another question, and we got about probably a minute or so here. But
sure.
I just wonder if there's anything you would like to say publicly as you leave to the incoming person that will be taking your role as Executive Vice President CEO, Donna Bullard.
Donna Bullard will be taking over as the Executive Vice President CEO.
Some words of wisdom.
December 1st. Well, Donna's got a wealth of experience. She's been with Star for over 24 years, worked directly with me for the past 16. But my advice would be yourself, firm but fair, and always look forward. Try to look past where you are and into the future as to what you see is going to be coming your way. I always hear about Wayne Gretzky, great hockey player. He didn't skate to where the puck was. He skated to where the puck was going to be.
Right.
So that has sort of been my philosophy, to try to see past where you currently are, but where you need to be. But just be yourself. Treat your employees well. They'll treat you well. And we've got great people. And Donna's a good person. She won't have any problem transitioning that part of it. I feel confident of that. But I want everybody to know I could not be any more blessed than I am today to have been able to accomplish the things I have. I grew up as a blue-collar kid in Clinton and had a lot of friends, and was very fortunate to grow up in a great town like we live in Sampson County, and to have been able to see the company through tough times and be at the level that I'm at today. I could not be more proud and more blessed than I am. It's been the honor of my professional career to work for Star. I mentioned that in the first segment, and I'll close it the same way. But I'm very thankful for my family, for my friends and my coworkers, and a great company to work for.
Jeff, I want to thank you for your service to Star Communications and to all of us members of Star.
Right.
And I wish you a blessed future and a bright future. And I want to get in touch with you maybe a month or two after you have actually retired and see how it feels without that weight that you've had to carry around. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, JW.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week right here on We Should Know, talking about a subject and a thing you need to know more about. Stay tuned and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host JW Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.